Hey, so this is actually insane. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel, your home for independent and nonpartisan political media and internet commentary and analysis. I don't know, I'm already out of it. I'm not even saying my own intro correctly. What a day and what a crazy story we've got to unpack because President Trump is focusing on fixing the economy and continuing to try to bring the war to Iran to it. Just kidding. He's rage tweeting about people on TV and who say things he doesn't like and threatening to sue them again. And his latest lawsuit threat we're going to break down because it's like uniquely bizarre in a lot of ways. Here is the headline from Politico. Center for American Progress defends National Guard research against Trump's lawsuit threat. Quote, Trump is lashing out and threatening bogus lawsuits because he wants to silence independent research, said Neera Tanden, CEO and president of CAP. Now, the Center for American Progress, by the way, guys, the context here is like, I don't know, the mainstream Democratic Party think tank. It's the equivalent of the Heritage Foundation for Joe Biden-style Democrats. It's not like radical leftist, but it is solidly liberal. And it is a kind of a mainstream Democratic establishment policy think tank and institution. Anyway, they disagreed with, apparently, President Trump's decision to deploy the National Guard to both Washington, D.C. and cities across the country, and they authored and published a report about this, suggesting that they argue it hasn't reduced crime or is not responsible for the declines in violent crime rates that we've seen in a lot of cities. And apparently Trump must have caught wind on this because of a recent television appearance. And here's where we get to the lawsuit threats. Let's keep reading here from Politico. The Center for American Progress stood behind a recent report that the Trump administration's National Guard deployments failed to reduce violent crime after the president threatened to sue the liberal think tank. In a statement released Tuesday, the organization accused President Donald Trump of lashing out in an attempt to, quote, silence independent research, waste taxpayer money on his failed agenda, and distract from the reality that his policies are hurting the American people. The Center for American Progress's July report, authored by the think tank's Associate Director of Public Safety, Chandler Hall, stated that the historic drop in violent crime across the nation began before Trump took office and well before the president deployed the National Guard to the nation's capital. Now, here's the thing. I don't know whether they're right or wrong. I would suspect that, particularly in Washington, D.C., deploying the National Guard probably did have some effect at reducing crime, just in terms of the visibility and people, being a little more cautious when they see law enforcement everywhere, or in this case, the National Guard everywhere, less likely to commit a crime. That would be my hunch, but I don't really know. I haven't studied this issue extensively, but this is it seems like normal think tank debate to me. Right? Policy experts on the left make some claims. Policy experts on the right make other claims. They publish white papers. They do podcasts. They debate it. Lawmakers tend to end up agreeing with the experts from their side. It's like, listen, you could find policy papers and claims from think tanks making all sorts of claims that are more absurd than this. Even if I do find this particular claim a little bit far-fetched, it's like you could find far more of a stretch and have it be, published or claimed by some think tank or nonprofit or whatever. And it's like, it's not a crime to be wrong. It's just a policy debate. It's a position, what have you. But Trump is threatening to sue them over this as the sitting president of the United States, and not just sue them, but sue their donors as well, which is a whole nother level of escalation. I'm going to read you in full what the president of the United States posted on Truth Social. And if you think I'm not taking pauses or breaths, that's because this is how he writes. And I want to ask you a couple questions about this post after I read it. He wrote, Chandler Hall, representing on television the foolish Center for American Lack of Progress, because they're called Center for American Progress, he's mocking them, stated that adding the National Guard to cities, including our now great again Washington, D.C., had, quote, no impact on crime. How crazy is that? Hall was met with furious dissent. The report is just another radical left scam. Okay, so far, I mean, as juvenile as like just the I don't think the president should talk like this, but so it's just a normal tweet raging about and disagreeing with something. So far, fine, I guess. Should it be a little more professional, a little more serious? I would say so, but he's allowed to disagree with or bash or insult people who say things that he doesn't like or criticize his policies. Here's where things get crazy. Back to the post here. The report is just another radical left scam, as are the people who fund this gaggle of lunatics. And then he lists a bunch of cap donors like, quote, George Soros, Bill and Melinda Gates, Google, Apple, Visa, Goldman Sachs, Citigroup, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, and more. He then claims that there's foreign support from the Embassy of Japan, the Korea Foundation, other places. And then he continues, the Democrats love it and are against anything Trump. These people and others like them are so bad for our country. Their stated course is anything to hate or demean Trump. Now, here's where we get to the part that's crazy. He is actually saying that they are, as we speak, drafting a lawsuit against Cap for this. Here he states, quote, this will be met with a lawsuit, which is being drawn now. I am also strongly considering adding some of the contributors to this fake organization. Crime is way down since I took office, and they know it. Liars at this level must be held accountable. Signed, President Donald J. Trump. So there's so much to say about this statement. One is that he seems to, at the end there, kind of misunderstand. They're not even, the Capra board doesn't even dispute that crime has fallen. They dispute that the National Guard deployment made any difference, which again is a debatable proposition. Maybe they are totally wrong, but that's certainly not something illegal or that you can sue someone even in civil court for what? An opinion you don't like? A claim you think is wrong about public policy? No, that's the essence of First Amendment protected speech. That's not defamation or any other sort of like civilly libelous claim that you could bring against somebody. So what you have is the sitting president of the United States threatening his critics with a frivolous lawsuit and even threatening their donors, which is another level of crazy because it's like donors are not responsible for every single statement an organization they fund makes. And we would never apply that logic to the Heritage Foundation. Like Trump would never say that about a conservative think tank, that every single person who gives them a penny is therefore somehow legally on the hook for every statement or report they author and publish. That's just not how that works. It's just because you support some cause doesn't mean that you are then personally or legally responsible for everything they go on to say and do. That's just totally wrong and deranged. And he's just gonna what? As the sitting president, start beef with a bunch of the biggest companies in the country and some of our wealthiest citizens? That's super normal. And that's all the thing about this is even the substance aside, the like style of rambling in his posts is so deranged. In any sort of more normal political climate or time, something like this, and he posts even crazier stuff, AI slop, even more incoherent rants on Truth Social, and people mostly just ignore it. But like in any other universe or in any more normal time in politics, this would be like 25th Amendment territory. To have a president of the United States who literally sits at a desk with a nuclear button that could end humanity as we know it, rambling on social media like a madman about the Democrats. It's just so childish and bizarre. But it's also a free speech issue, right? Because he is threatening to sue his critics when they've done literally nothing illegal. You might think they're wrong, dumb, whatever. It's not, as this show demonstrates, with all the people we react to saying crazy stuff, it's not illegal to be dumb in public or to run your mouth and say stupid things or publish reports making dumb claims. Like that's all free speech. That's all fair game. That's all political debate. So I want to read you a statement from the Nonpartisan Foundation for Individual Rights and Expression, FIRE, the nation's preeminent First Amendment advocacy organization, and their lawyers. Disclaimer, I do a little bit of work with them, so slight, relationship there, but this isn't that. I'm just reading their work here because I think they're correct. Anyway, Aaron Turr from FIRE says in a tweet, the Center for American Progress says the administration's National Guard deployments didn't reduce urban crime. President Trump says they did. Okay, that's what political debate is for. but Trump is now threatening to sue CAP over its conclusion about the effectiveness of a government policy. Whether you agree with CAP's analysis or not, that's heartland First Amendment protected speech. There's no viable legal claim here, just another attempt by the president to silence and punish political opponents by tying them up with frivolous litigation. And I think that's the key here, really, is that it is about lashing out at your critics. He doesn't want to be undermined. What's hilarious is that this so clearly backfires in that nobody was talking about the Center for American Progress's report and its claims. It might have made a couple headlines here or there, but it wasn't getting major attention or airtime. But now that Trump raged about it, way more people are going to hear about this report that he doesn't like the conclusions of than if he just kept his mouth shut in the first place. It's just such a perfect example of how he just can't help himself. And it's so maddening to me that he can't just put down the phone. He would be such a stronger place politically if he did. But regardless, anyway, the key principle here is that you don't get to just weaponize frivolous lawsuits to try to silence your critics. The threat to target donors is a whole nother level of escalation. And imagine the reverse scenario, right? Imagine that the Heritage Foundation published claims about the open borders policies of the Biden administration that the Biden administration thought were false or wrong. And falsely, in their view, the Heritage Foundation accused them of causing additional rapes or murders because of the immigration policies that they thought was wrong or inaccurate. If President Biden had put out a statement like this, threatening to sue them and sue their donors, and then named their donors, every single host on Fox News would have had an aneurysm on air and said that that is an attack on free speech in the First Amendment. Yes, even though they're just threatening to sue in their personal capacity, doesn't matter. You're using the bully pulpit of the presidency and just the inseparable conflict of interest between you as a private citizen and you as the sitting president of the United States signing this tweet as the president. You are effectively using your government office as a cudgel against people who are criticizing you. I know for a fact, because I would have been on air agreeing with them, that if President Biden had done such a thing, everyone in right-wing media would scream bloody murder, and it would be viewed as a attack on the First Amendment and free speech, and as the ramblings of a madman. And they would have been correct. They would have been correct. And President Biden, to be clear, did stuff not like this. He didn't write or make posts like this, but he did other stuff that I thought was an attack on the First Amendment or freedom of speech. And I did criticize him for that. But the point is that the hyper-partisan media and just tribalistic environment doesn't even come close to applying any semblance of the same standards to both sides. So what you end up with is, with conservative media, a lot of very valid and fair critiques and positions that they take about things like free speech and the national debt and how it's a problem and how government spending is out of control and all this stuff that they raise when Democrats are in power. And then the second a Republican takes charge, 95% of them just totally ignore it and never say these things again or raise these points ever again. It's remarkable. I mean, you see this kind of political hypocrisy on both sides. Another good example is that many of the Democrats who were defending Graham Plattner initially after some of the allegations had previously said that a much, much less substantiated allegation against Brett Kavanaugh, the conservative Supreme Court justice from Trump's first term, who's now in the Supreme Court, was disqualifying and that they believe women and all this. And then when Plattner started getting accusations, they suddenly were like, well, we don't know. Who knows? This is not proven. This person isn't trustworthy, all this stuff. They switched up real quick. And it's just, to me, that's unacceptable. If you actually believe in any of these things or have any sort of principles that you stand for, you have to apply them equally, regardless of partisan politics or which foot the shoe is on at that particular moment. And it just feels like nobody really does that. And I find that maddening. I find that so deeply disappointing in terms of what the job of a political commentator is supposed to be. But so many people are just partisan shills or just have complete and total double standards. And guys, I say this a lot, but if you have double standards, you don't have any standards at all. Anyway, that's my take on the situation. Y'all will have to let me know what you think in the comments below. Make sure you're subscribed if you aren't yet. Do hit the like button and consider becoming a channel member to support me. These are the kinds of videos that I do, pushing back on both sides, and unfortunately that is not the best business model. If you just pander to one side or just completely, do Team Blue or Team Red propaganda, you can get millions of subscribers and make millions of dollars, but I'm far too opinionated and frankly far too catty to do that. So instead, I do need support from viewers like you. Hit the join button or click the link in the description to become a channel member now. And with that, guys, we'll be back with more real soon.